The wind howled through the jagged peaks of the mountains, rattling the wooden shutters of the small cabin perched precariously on a narrow cliffside. Inside, the fire sputtered weakly, barely keeping the chill at bay. And that was when she appeared, an old woman, her face lined with years of hardship, clutching the hands of her two young daughters. Their clothes were tattered, their eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. They were travelers, lost and desperate, seeking shelter from the unforgiving winter that had begun to creep over the valley. The mountain man, stoic, solitary, and known to rarely welcome strangers, watched them from the doorway. His eyes, sharp yet weary, assessed the trio silently. His cabin had always been his fortress, a sanctuary built with his own hands to escape a world that had once betrayed him. Trust did not come easily here, and yet, something about the desperation in the old woman's voice, the way her daughters trembled behind her, pierced the walls he had built around his heart. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking like fragile ice, "we have nowhere else to go. Just a night, we only ask for warmth." He hesitated. The mountain had taught him caution. Strangers brought danger, or so the villagers would warn. But there was a softness in his chest that he could not ignore, a flicker of memory of his own lost family, a pang of loneliness he hadn't felt in years. With a curt nod, he stepped aside. "Come in. Quickly, before the night swallows you." The old woman's relief was palpable, and she ushered her daughters into the cabin, their eyes lighting up at the glow of the fire. The mountain man observed quietly as they settled near the warmth, his usual silence broken only by the crackling wood. He brought over blankets, handed them warm water, and offered food. It was simple, humble, and yet, in that gesture, the room seemed to pulse with a fragile hope. Over the following days, life in the cabin became a rhythm of quiet survival and unexpected connection. The old woman, whose name was Myra, shared stories of the life they had lost, a village destroyed by a storm, a husband claimed by illness, a past filled with struggle and sorrow. The daughters, Lila and Anya, clung to each other, finding safety in their mother's embrace and, gradually, in the steady presence of the mountain man, whose name was Elias. Elias himself began to soften in ways he hadn't expected. He showed the girls how to chop wood, how to recognize edible herbs in the snow-dusted forest, and even how to make simple toys from scraps of wood. Each evening, as the family huddled near the fire, he listened to their laughter, a sound so foreign yet so comforting. The walls of his cabin, once silent witnesses to solitude, now echoed with life. But the mountain was harsh, and challenges came swiftly. A blizzard roared through the peaks one night, shaking the cabin to its foundations. Snow piled against the doors, threatening to trap them inside. Food dwindled, and the wind's roar drowned out even the sound of conversation. Fear gripped Myra, and she clutched her daughters tightly, whispering prayers into the frozen air. Elias, though fearful himself, took decisive action. He reinforced the cabin walls with logs, secured the roof with ropes, and lit the fire with meticulous care. Through the storm, he guided them, teaching that courage was not the absence of fear but the will to act despite it. When the storm finally passed, the cabin stood, battered but unbroken, just like those within it. That night, under a sky sprinkled with stars, Myra approached Elias. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You could have turned us away, but you saved us." Elias, looking at the children who now slept peacefully, felt something he hadn't in decades, a sense of belonging. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "helping others is the only way to find yourself." Days turned into weeks, and what had started as mere shelter grew into a fragile but steadfast family. The mountain man, once lonely and wary, found joy in teaching, protecting, and sharing life with Myra and her daughters. The children laughed freely again, and Myra, whose strength had carried them through unbearable loss, began to dream again of a future filled with hope rather than fear. Word of their unlikely bond spread to nearby villages, not through gossip, but through the quiet transformations people noticed, how kindness, courage, and resilience could blossom even in the harshest conditions. And when spring finally melted the snow into glistening streams, Elias, Myra, Lila, and Anya stood at the edge of the cabin's porch, looking out over the mountains. Life was still challenging, unpredictable, and sometimes unforgiving, but together, they had found warmth, safety, and the kind of love that cannot be measured by blood alone. Before the camera fades, imagine Elias teaching the girls to skip stones on the thawing river, their laughter ringing through the mountains, Myra smiling beside him, and the world outside feeling just a little less lonely. In that moment, viewers understand, the simplest acts of courage and compassion can change lives forever. If you felt your heart moved by this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that kindness is stronger than any storm, and family can be found in the most unexpected places. If you want, I can also break this down into a full 40-minute YouTube narration script with natural pauses, suspense beats, and emotional hooks so it's ready to record. That would make it feel cinematic and keep viewers engaged all the way through. Do you want me to do that next?